Hi, this is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. This is a channel that brings to you every week a policy analysis, a short story, business story, or but most important, policy analysis. And but this time at 8:15 in the morning, we bring to you news behind the news. This is a time when we pick up two or three headlines that we think are very important and we analyze them for you to show you that the news item is much more than what is being told. And today, as always, I have my three co-anchors, my two co-anchors with me. There is Katya. Welcome, Katya. And there is Anurag. Welcome, Anurag. And today, we discuss the following three titles. Look at the titles on the screen. The first one is on how the Gazan aid delivery failed miserably yesterday and the lessons that are there for India. The second one is a very interesting story about Jio tying up with BlackRock and getting the SEBI nod. And the third one is also equally interesting, how Germany replaces Japan as the world's largest creditor. And before I begin, just a reminder, please click the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. Please click the like button. It helps us enormously. And the third one, which is crucial, tell all your friends and associates about us. We need our audiences to grow because we think what we're doing is quite important. Okay, let's begin the first story. The first story is a ghastly story of hungry people who've been hungry for more than 2 months and a food delivery program, an aid delivery program for food, water, medicines that the US and Israel ushered in. And halfway through, they had very few delivery centers. The crowd became restive, and Israel began shooting at the hungry Gazans. The UN had warned the US that the scheme that they had in mind would not work because the UN has had lots of experience in this area through UNRWA. US wouldn't listen, Israel wouldn't listen, they went ahead with the scheme, and predictably, it was a disaster. When hungry people are brought to a center to get food and they don't get any food and are turned away, it's a double ache for them. But you may think it's an accident, but please look at the past. The US has tried this gambit before, of promising too much, tantalizing hungry and desperate people, and not delivering anything at the end of it. It first tried to give you food through airdrops, then said, no, it's not viable. Then they built a jetty, and the ship was kept out to tell the Gazans, look, we give you food. Nothing happened, and now this. And this is after several assurances of ceasefires that would work. You don't treat hungry and desperate people this way. But there's a lesson for India. There was a time when India was hungry and desperate. In the 1960s, we wanted wheat, and the US had wheat. They agreed to give it to us after we signed what is known as the PL-480 Accord, which gave the US the right to insult, to humiliate, to command Indian officers. And we were compelled to take wheat that was substandard, but India had no choice. We took that wheat. And today, when USA wants to send agriculture goods to India, remember, if India dies in agriculture, India will be at the mercy of the US once again. We've seen what PL-480 is. We do not want to go there anymore. And that is my message for today. because of the Gazan episode. It's frightening, but let's take the other story, which is not so frightening, which is interesting. And can you hear Katya? Katya, can I hear your story?
It's not equally frightening, but it's somewhat because one of the biggest players, management companies of the world has come to India. BlackRock, we all know, it's got $11.5 trillion in assets. It's a gigantic number. If BlackRock wanted, it could pay off debt of many countries. But they have tied up with Jio Financial Services. This has been in the works. They just received the SEBI nod for it, so they can launch the mutual funds and various other projects in India. So Jio Financial Services, as we know, has been spun off from the Reliance main company, parent company. In August 2023, it was listed on the bourses. Ever since, its performance has not been doing too well, because last quarter their net profit grew 2%. Net interest income had actually in fact fallen. The company, even though it is a digital company, has the backing of Jio, the millions, hundreds of millions of subscribers whom these financial products can be given to. But fintech market in India is quite competitive. Asset management companies are also, there are a large number of them. But what Geo BlackRock wants to bring to the table, it's USP. It's got a very interesting platform. It's called Aladdin. I don't know whether it's a magic lamp or not, but it's an investment management platform. It's a proprietary technology of BlackRock, and they're going to it has going to have a common language code, so it's going to be very different. And Geo Financial Services claims to be digital first company, so it wants to bring it together and then kind of revolutionize the market. But sir, do you think, but a lot of financial services are already heavily on digital anyways. So what uniqueness can we bring, and is there space? We actually, domestic investments are still growing. The market crash has not stopped SIPs. So domestic market investments, financialization is on. But what do you think is going to happen with them?
Firstly, please remember BlackRock, being the world's largest investor, is the main financier indirectly of Israel's war efforts. Israel is
Right.
bankrupt. It's floated debt bonds, which have been bought by Kushner's hedge company, and which in turn have been given to BlackRock. Most of the Ukraine assets that are owned by Americans is owned by BlackRock. Expect them to play a very significant role in India. Having the largest player in India, which is Jio, the group, the Reliance Group, expect rules to be bent and changed the way they have been changed in all other ventures of Reliance Group in the past. So they will use the market, they will use the rules, change the rules where there's impediment. They will become formidable. And the government, because it is too scared to go against any US company, will find its hands tied in. Interesting times, interesting combination, interesting possibilities. Thanks, Katya. Brilliant story. And now can we have Anurag? Anurag is an interesting development too.
Good morning. So Japan has finally given away its top position as world's largest creditor nation to Germany. And for the first time in 34 years, despite posting a record amount of overseas assets. Basically, being a top creditor nation means holding more net assets than external liabilities, effectively making the country the world's largest lender. These assets typically include foreign direct investments, corporate ownership, bonds, and other financial holdings abroad. Japan's net external assets reached $3.7 trillion at the end of 2024, rising about 13% from the previous year, according to the data released Tuesday by the Ministry of Finance of Japan. While this figure marked an all-time high, it was overtaken by Germany, whose net external assets totaled to $3.9 trillion, almost $200 billion, more than Japan. One of the major reasons for Germany's ascent in the last year is that the last year the euro yen rate rose around 5%, exaggerating the increase in German assets versus Japanese in yen terms. For Japan, a weaker yen contributed to increases in both foreign assets and liabilities, but assets grew at a faster pace, driven in part by expanded business investments abroad. As you can see on the chart, China remained the third place with net assets of $3.5 trillion. And if we talk about India in this race, its external assets, primarily comprising foreign currency assets (FCAs), stood at $685 billion as of this week, a fair distance from the top countries. But on the other side, India's external debt stood at $717 billion at the end of December last year, representing 10% more as compared to the previous year. Moreover, India's external debt to GDP ratio was 19.1% as of December 2024. So India is clearly far away in this race as being a lender. What's your take on this, sir?
Development for several reasons. After Trump came in, Japan realized it would have to shore up its own debt burden, and they've started selling US Treasury bonds. As a result, it slipped from number 1 to number 2. Now, when that happens, expect the Japanese yen to get stronger, but Japan wants to attract investment, so it will also start offering higher interest rates, which means investments will go from USA to Japan, what is known as carry trade. Now, that also means that the US is going to be flooded with dollar in the market, and the dollar could depreciate even further. It won't be long before Germany also starts shedding its dollar assets because the dollar is no longer reliable. So, interesting times. This change of ranking presages many more moves that could be volatile for the bond market and for markets in general. Thanks, Anurag. Very interesting story. And that takes me to the very end of today's session. I can take a couple of questions though, and let me look at the first question. The first question is a Katya story, and that is: do you expect Reliance to become the number 1 mutual fund company in India? Katya, what's your take?
So, like I said, this market is very, very, very crowded. In fact, like 2 years back, Motilal Oswal had come up with one of its products. Top mutual fund experts say it's the 10th or 11th or 13th player. In Bajaj Finance was also said something. It is low, very, very low in the market. Please remember, sir, these markets are tough to capture. But whether the platform will make a difference or not, we know, because already these digital options exist. So how they market these products and how far and deep they will go, India is a large market. It's better suited for smaller players, for homegrown players. But like in the line of the number of AMC companies, it is really, really at the bottom. Like we said, its net profit for last quarter is around 300 crores, and its net interest income has also been falling. So we'll see if BlackRock will make a difference to Jio's financial services finances is what somebody should see. So
very valid points, Katya. This is going to be a tough market because unlike others with the regulated markets, these are markets that are more consumer driven. You're right.
Consumer driven, right? And they are already options.
And most of the possibilities exist in rural areas, which are high risk borrowers and investors too.
Right, very much.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thanks, Katya. Okay, let me take a second question. The second question is on the bond markets. Do you expect the dollar to fall? Well, I told you earlier, at least some financial analysts, including the former finance minister of Greece, has been on record saying that we expect the dollar to fall by 30%. It's estimated to have fallen by about 7% now. So there's a lot of space yet. Expect that to fall. Which means that if you put dollars, start jettisoning them. It's a lesson that India's treasury market should listen to, because India's reserves are mostly dollar denominated, which give you a small yield and high risk. Not right. Okay. There is a third question, which is, what is the way out for Gaza? No, I don't know. I'm hoping that something comes out on the 16th of June, when the United Nations has a special meeting only on granting an independent state status to Palestine. USA will try its level best to prevent that resolution going through, but the world is tired. Even the EU has been discussing the possibility of imposing sanctions against Israel. Terrible times for the Gazans, terrible times for Palestine, in spite of being called war criminals and being guilty of ethnic cleansing. That's all for today. But thank everyone for being with us. We love your presence. And do log in again tomorrow. We'd like to see you once again. Take care. Have a wonderful day.